Rappin with ReefBum is sponsored by Polo Reef, Champion Lighting and Supply, and ReefnBid. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin with ReefBum. My name is Keith, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Dong. What's going on there, Dong?
Very good, very good.
How you been there? What's new in your reef keeping world these days?
My frag tank busted.
Ooh.
Well, guess how many coral I lost?
How many?
2 frags.
2 frags. That's it. So you were around when the thing happened.
Actually, not. I was in market basket.
You were in market basket.
Yes. And then when I came back, and then there probably only 1 inch of water in the frag tank. The rest of them's all on the floor. Yeah.
So hold it. The corals were like out of water for how long?
Probably at least 30-40 minutes, something like that, I guess.
Wow. And that was the big acro frag tank, right?
Yeah, the big acro frag tank.
And you lost only 2 frags.
Only 2 frags.
That speaks to the resiliency of acropora. Let me tell you, man. Well, that's unbelievable. Well, I think Andrew, when we bring Andrew and Sanjay and Mike Paletta is going to be joining us about 30 minutes late. When we bring Andrew on, he can relate to that because he had a big leak as well.
It's the season.
Yeah. So Dong and I are really excited about tonight's show with Sanjay and Andrew and Mike Paletta. So we will be talking about what's in store for the future of reef keeping in terms of, trends, methodologies, equipment, what's hot, what's new. All those guys do a lot of experimenting, so I think it'll be a great kind of panel to talk about all that sort of thing. And I know you have a lot of thoughts on the topic as well, Dong, and you have some questions as well as I do. Yeah. But before we bring those guys on, I want to thank our sponsors, Polo Reef. Make sure to check out Polo Reef's new YouTube video. A reefer's worst nightmare is a flood, as Dong can attest to. When the Polo team discovered a leaking pipe on the 17,000-gallon reef, what they thought would be a quick fix turned into an unexpected flooding nightmare. Make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel at Polo Reef for video drop notifications. Champion Lighting and Supply. Flow is very important for keeping corals happy in a reef. Growing corals can block flow from wave makers and create dead spots. That's about to change. The ocean sea wave will oscillate any wave maker or power in your aquarium from 0 to 180 degrees at an adjustable speed. This creates natural dynamic flow patterns, reduces dead spots, and kicks up detritus. The ocean sea wave is available exclusively through Champion Lighting and Supply. Visit championlighting.com for more information. And finally, ReefnBid. ReefnBid is the first of its kind in the reefing hobby, an online auction marketplace built by reefers for reefers to alleviate traditional auction pain points with features like auto pay. ReefnBid currently hosts over 40 sellers ranging from established vendors such as Aqua SD and Pieces of the Ocean to private hobbyists. It's like going to a virtual frag show and getting great deals in an auction format. Check them out at reefnbid.com. All right, so let's do something here and bring on our guest, Andrew Sandler.
Hi, all.
Joshi, what's going on there, guys?
Hey, guys.
Oh, we got Paletta now with
There he is.
Yep.
Man, Mike Paletta.
Hi,
What's happening there?
Hi,
Oh, you made it.
Yep, I missed
Mike,
the last song.
Mike, you got a stream of light that's on your picture that
Looks
like you're in The Exorcist, like you're about to get killed.
All right. Well, now we get a great view of that planted tank. What is he's doing a little adjusting right there.
I think it's the other one.
Yep.
There you go.
I'm getting some feedback here, Dong. Can you turn up your mic? It sounds people are having trouble hearing you.
You're gonna live.
Okay.
You're gonna live now, Mike.
There we go.
How about now?
Yeah, I think as much as you can crank it up. All right. So, all right, everybody. Well, listen, this is going to be awesome. Really, very psyched for this panel discussion tonight to talk about the future of reef keeping. But we kind of wanted to start with Sanjay because he went through something that, it was a nightmare scenario, right, Sanjay? In terms of what happened to your tank and the power outage and what resulted just hours after it happened.
Yep, it was a total nightmare and total wipeout.
right? And it was devastating, but I'm over it now. There are a lot of things that you look back and you go, I could have, should have, right? But at the same time, you look at the decisions you made, and you made the decisions based on the data you have. This is an outlier event, right? And I obviously didn't think that this outlier event would ever happen to me. Right? I mean, I've lived in this house for 30 years, and the maximum power I've lost is maybe 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Right? So when you look at these things and you go, what's the risk I'm taking, right? And you go 2, 3 hours, I know my tank would survive, right? I've pushed my tank just out of curiosity to see, did a simulation of a power outage, and I could go easily. I've gone 4 or 5 hours without power on that tank, right? So you have a good window on what the lifespan of a power outage that you could handle without any intervention, right?
Mm.
And I had a good idea, and we've never lost power for more than 2 or 3 hours in 30 years. And I have enough backup to maybe let me go for another couple of hours, right? So I could go 6, 7 hours without power, and I might still be okay. Which, again, as it played out, I have 5 tanks at home.
Mm.
All 5, I didn't lose a single fish or a coral. Well, all 4 of the other ones.
Yeah.
On one tank, it just went boom, complete wipeout. And I have enough, ideas on what might have happened to the tank and why it happened to that tank. Right? I mean, it's a 20-year-old tank packed with corals, right? I mean, I don't think I've seen a tank with that much density of coral in a single tank. And it's not just coral. It's 20 years of growth of all sorts of microfauna, right? I had so much sponges in that tank. It was incredible. Right? My sump was full of sponge. So there are things in that tank that are typically not common in most tanks. So when that tank started to go, it just spiraled out of control very quickly.
Like 6 hours or something, right?
6 hours I was watching it, right? I was like, 5 hours, things are still okay. I'm like, power will come back, power will come back. 6 hours is when I started
it
to
is a little bit
notice,
like a Sandy Katrina simulation.
it pretty much was.
But you
Right?
never
6
did a
hours.
simulation after all the corals had grown like they had in the last 18
I
months.
did.
mean,
I did
You
the
did
simulation
after the last
in
18
November.
months? Okay.
In November, I did the simulation. I
Okay.
said,
What simulation?
I just shut off all the power to the tank
For how long?
for 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah, and I said, let me see what if I see distress, I'll turn things on. At 4 hours, there was no signs of distress.
Wow.
So I said, all right, at least I have a 4-hour window, right, where if power went out, I'd be okay. So that kind of was my window, but in this, I had enough for maybe to let me go for another couple of hours. I had enough air pumps and some battery backups to get some water keep flowing and everything. But I think the way it went, you know how acros are. When they get pissed, they slime. And I think this acro slime is devastating, especially when there's a lot of acro slime. Essentially, and all the bacteria in the tank, they start to suck up oxygen really fast. And about 6 hours time frame, the Watanabes were the first ones to start gasping for air. And these things happen at night. So fish are already kind of asleep, right? So they're all hiding in their little spots. So you don't really even see them until they start to suffer and start coming out, right? At that time, I moved every single air pump that was running in my other tanks, and I moved it to the big tank. right? The air pumps, again, it's one of those things. If you don't keep up to date with the batteries, that's a problem, right? All these air pumps, they run on D batteries.
Mm-hmm.
So at midnight, after 6 hours of power, batteries were kind of fading out. And I said, you know what? I should go buy some D batteries. And nothing is open at 12 o'clock at night except gas stations. And gas stations, the sheets I went to does not carry D batteries.
Oh, no.
I went to 3 gas stations. No one had D batteries.
Oh, man.
So at that point, you're like, okay, I might lose a few things, but power will come back by the morning. And, there'll be some losses, but most of the corals will be okay. But when that one day becomes 2 days, 3 days, right? Although after the first night, I ran and got a generator, right? So at least I could get some water motion and get things moving. But the moment I turned the pumps on, the tank went completely cloudy.
Huh.
It was cloudy. You couldn't even see into it.
Yeah.
So at that point, I knew this is not going to work. I could even turn the lights on. It's not going to save any corals. They're done.
Yeah.
But I kept it running. The skimmer was running. The pumps were all running. And I didn't turn the lights on because it was too cloudy anyway. So,
Sanjay,
every day they kept telling you power will be back in 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours. And it just keeps getting extended. Right? And it runs into 3+ days. And the problem with generator also is that, I bought a generator, but it runs out of gas. Every 4 hours, I was putting gas into it. So for 3 nights, I pretty much had my alarm set up to wake me up after every 4 hours to fill it with gas. But yeah, it was devastating. On the last day, when I started to look at the tank, I go, you know what? The corals, there might be some corals like SPS that might be still alive because they kind of look like they were brown still. So I reach in and I go to pull them out, and the tissue just flakes off and falls in the water.
Whoa.
It was that bad.
Wow.
Wow.
Right? So you couldn't. So all the tissue essentially of the corals was dissolving in the water. And if you guys know the smell of dying acro,
It's not a good smell.
There's nothing like it.
You could smell it in my house for the next 3 days. And I'm pulling out corals. I filled up half of a 48 by 48 tub, half of it with just dead coral. Right? If I were to weigh that coral, that probably weighs about 100, 150 pounds. Just coral. So there was that much density of stuff in there. So yeah, I'm still in the phase of cleaning it up slowly. Every day I spend a couple of hours.
How come, Sanjay, how come you didn't just bleach the thing and start anew?
Because there's no fun in doing that.
Oh, okay. I figured that was the answer.
I thought about doing
it. It's a science project, right?
No, I thought about doing it. And I said, you know what, if I do it, what did we learn from this? Right? I always take the angle that if something goes bad, I need to learn something out of it, get something out of it. Right? So what do we learn if I just trashed everything and restarted? Nothing. I'll be back in the same boat. I've done that many a times where I've started tanks from nothing. There's no learning left for me in there, right? But here was a challenge now. Could I revive a tank from this kind of a disaster, right? Doing the least amount of things to it. And looking at the various phases it goes through, right? So after the first day, you start seeing this white mesh everywhere, right? The whole tank looks like it's got patches of white, which is essentially either bacteria or fungus or whatever covers the dead tissue, right? You go in there and you blow that dead tissue with a turkey baster, and there's hydrogen sulfide underneath it, and it's black. right?
A lot
So,
of death.
A lot of death, right? And now the ammonia levels start to go up, right? So just out of curiosity, I said, what's the ammonia level look like? Right? I don't even own an ammonia kit because I never had to test ammonia ever before. So a friend of mine loaned me one. I tested it, and it couldn't test it. It was so dark.
Off the chart.
Off the charts. So we're diluting it 10-1.
Off the chart, Phil?
To bring it on the chart, and there it was reading 2.5, so multiply by 10, roughly 25 to 30 parts per million ammonia in there. That's a lot of ammonia, right? So that destroys the sand bed completely. All the bacteria gets destroyed. Now, if you look at my sand bed, it's got a layer of hydrogen sulfide on it. All the aerobic bacteria
Gone.
gone because there's no oxygen for a long time. Right? So I'm like, okay, I've never seen this before, but here's a challenge now. I'm going to take this on as a challenge. I don't really need a reef tank right away. I have others, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's my challenge now. It's a science project. I'm collecting data on what's happening to the tank. And I've noticed some interesting things, right? The pH went way up. Right? It reached almost over 15. All of a sudden, my Trident cannot test. The pH is out of range. Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's strange.
So that was interesting. So of course, you know, you look and go, what happened there? Right? For one, all the corals are gone. So there's no consumption. When I started, the power came back, my reactor was still running. So it added some alkalinity. But I shut it off. I realized that very quickly, and I shut the CO2 off. Right? When the pH went, as the die-off was happening, right, and the ammonia is forming, it basically started to create acidic areas where the sand could have been dissolving, and the pH ran up all the way past 15. And the ammonia is now sitting at 30 parts per million, right? And I remember when I posted that, Meckley said, I bet you it's going to go down in a week, the ammonia, right? And sure enough, 3 days later, you could start to see the pH start to drop rapidly. Right? So as the ammonia is converting to nitrates, the pH is dropping now. So the pH
Do you mean the alkalinity or pH?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
No, your alkalinity was 15. pH
Above
can't go over
15.
14.
No, pH was sitting at 8.6 or so.
Oh, okay. You were saying
Yeah,
pH
yeah.
of 15. That was
No. The alkalinity was 15 plus.
okay. Alkalinity was 15.
Yeah.
Within 4 days, right? The pH came down, and the alkalinity came down to like 9, 8.5, 9 in that range, right? So at that point, I said, oh, that's kind of interesting. The ammonia at that point now is starting to go to zero. So as the ammonia is getting converted to nitrates, you can start to see that, hey, the alkalinity is dropping, okay? And things are now in the range where nitrates are being formed. So I said, let me check the nitrates now, right? Same thing. And the Hannah is flashing at 75.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, I took that tube and I poured it in my sink. It was blood red. I've never seen it like
Sonny,
I
you
have
remember
never
in your heyday, Sanjay, you used to keep nitrates that high and phosphate that high, and your corals grew like insane. So, you know.
The thing was blood red. I'm diluting it 10-1 to get any good readings, and nitrates are sitting at like 200 plus. You know. Phosphates, I tested again. The phosphates didn't go up that well. They did go up. They were like sitting at 2 point something. You know.
Okay.
So now today, if I look at my tank, things are stable. Right?
Are you going to reuse that sand bed? You're gonna
No,
just
you're
leave
not.
it.
Really?
You're gonna let it ride.
Of course I'm going to use it.
You're gonna let it ride as is.
Yeah, that's my
Wow.
science experiment.
What about all the hydrogen sulfide in there?
It'll go away.
Oh,
I'll stir it up. One of these days I'll go in. It's already reduced a lot. You can see it reduced. So as the water flow increases, the oxygen levels of the water hitting the sand bed increases, and that oxygen permeates in there, the H2S is starting to go away.
It will be interesting to see if you get the same algae cycling in this tank as most people get when they do a new tank, or if you've already bypassed it. Because for the most part, you've never really had an algae issue in that tank for the last 15 years or so.
Other than bubble algae and Wallonia and things like that, nothing else now. So yeah, so this is my science experiment for now, right? And in some sense, I go, oh, this is kind of cool because I get my summers off now. I don't worry about my tank. I can go spend weeks with my granddaughters and not worry about the tank.
things happen for a reason in the mysterious ways.
Now,
So my plan is by August, right? I'll make a decision on what I really want to do with that tank.
So you haven't decided if you're going to do another SPS tank, an LPS tank, a Gonia tank?
Not 100% decided on what I want to do yet.
just put some pulsing zinnia in there and let it take over.
No, there's some more interesting options, right? I mean, I look at what would provide enough of a challenge to keep me interested.
A bunch of Tahitian wild maximas that probably love that dirty water.
They might.
They might.
I just have no access to those things, so.
I get you.
I say a Goniapora tank. All Goniaporas.
Well, Meckley says, let me know when you want corals back. I have a bunch of yours, and I concur. I'll say the same thing whenever you're ready. But hey, if you're going for a different thing, not acros, then I can't help you out.
No, there will be acros, but I think I'm leaning towards the deep water acros. Something that I always failed at. Right? They never used to do well in my tank because the conditions were always geared towards high light, high flow, high intensity, and they don't seem to like that.
Nope.
So this might be a chance to kind of say, okay, let me try these.
You might be the new king of grannies.
Maybe.
Smooth skin, Sanjay.
Smooth skin already happening, so maybe the corals would be happy too.
So Joe has a question, Muscat. What's happening there, Joe? And I was thinking the same thing. So his question is his comment is make sure you get a generator before you do anything. You have a generator. It's a gas. You have a gas power generator, but if you're not home, that's not going to turn on.
Yep,
so have you thought about that?
That happened, right? I was supposed to be in Miami with my wife, and I came back a week before her. Otherwise, I would have been sitting in Miami, and this would have happened.
Wow.
So even having a generator is not enough, right? You need a generator that can handle you being away. That means you have to have an automatic transfer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be a generator that doesn't require filling with gas every 4 hours.
We just had this conversation. You missed it before you got on.
Yeah. So these are the kind of things you have to think about. Right. And then you have to weigh that against the likelihood of an event happening.
You have natural gas going through your house or no?
Yes, I do.
Right. So you don't have to worry about that. You hook it up that way.
Right. But at some point, you got to look at it and say, okay, do I want to spend $20,000 to put up this generator when I could potentially replace my whole tank for $5,000?
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to go extremes. I mean, the numbers may not be correct, but the point that you have to evaluate is at what point does it become worth it?
I don't know. I'll tell you what. If it happens on a hot, disgusting weekend and you have air conditioning, you might find other ways to enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's, but you can't tell somebody who has a 20 gallon tank to go get a whole house generator. It doesn't make
Right.
sense.
But by also the
Like
same.
somebody like Andrew, it absolutely makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The other thing though, Sanjay, is
somebody like me. I'm sitting on the edge.
the other
right?
thing though. What Andrew said in terms of like a hot summer. What about the middle of winter? You get an ice storm, and the temperatures drop. You're not home. Pipes freeze, burst.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
even now, it wasn't freezing, but my tank on the third day, I didn't put the heaters on because they suck up a lot of power, right? So on the third day, my tanks were at 68 degrees. You know, this is springtime in Pennsylvania. The night times temperatures drop to the 40s.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another thing to consider. Right. So when you start factoring in all of those things, you need a bigger and bigger generator.
Yeah.
To be able to handle a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Okay?
well, because
So
of
I
you,
think
Sanjay,
it's
I
important.
ordered a second 3,000 watt generator. So now I have one for upstairs and one for downstairs.
Yeah, but be careful with that rating. 3,000 watts is peak power. Okay. So if you're going to use it, you run it at 3,000 watts, the generator is going to stall.
No, I'm not planning on running. I mean, all I can run is the return pumps, power heads, and the refrigerator. That's it.
Yeah.
I can get sunlight on 2 of the tanks. Downstairs, I have a slightly bigger one.
I've got a 5 kilowatt automatic, full house backup generator. It's not supposed to, really be something that can run the whole house. So we don't have every circuit on the house on it.
Right.
But, I have 2 different reef tank systems with lighting and what have you, about 800 gallons overall total. And when we lose power, everything is still running on the tank, the lights, the pumps.
How many days?
I've got it hooked up to a 100-gallon propane tank, and it can go for 5 days.
Okay.
So
I told him the only problem with that is if it's like Terminator and nobody can pump and get out to your, people turn into zombies or something like that, and
you can't replace your propane.
You may have to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you prepare for? That's the key, right?
Yeah.
I have natural gas and 225 kW generators. I can live for months and not even know I have no electric.
Come
Yeah,
on.
in my old house where I had the 1200 Sanjay, I had a full house natural gas, and it kicked on, but I lost the tank because my ex-wife didn't flip the circuit breaker whenever the air conditioner chiller blew. So
there you go.
Yeah,
Dong, you have an interesting power backup system. You want to just kind of give everybody the overview what you're doing there with the lithium-ion batteries?
Oh, okay. So, well, I do have a gas generator, but here's an interesting thing. So if you don't want to ruin your Apex or controller or something like that, you need a inverter generator. So the many of the generator put out some dirty power. I've seen many, even the LED get fried by those kind of things. So what I have is that because last time I lost power is 2018 in winter. So that way they have no way to run the generator in the house. It has to be outside. So, but I do have one thing is called it's made by Eco something like that.
EcoFlow.
No, not EcoFlow. That's well before that. So what it does is that it basically has 4 battery packs on big blocks of center controlling unit. And also that each battery pack, I also have a fast charger for that. So the total power is about 3,500 watts, the lithium-ion battery. So what I was doing is that I was running the generator, the gas generator outside of the house, using a fast charger to charge the battery packs. So because this power station has 4 battery packs, so when one is running, I can charge another one. So the good thing is that I found out that the fast charger really works, because before one battery pack run down, and then the other one is already charged, and also have 2 spare sitting on the power station. So basically, I think you can still buy from Home Depot. It only costs about like $1,400. So I use that to power all the return pumps. But right now, besides this, the lithium ion generator, all the return pump has their dedicated UPS, the uninterruptible power supply. So the way I do it is that I get those used power supply because they have the lead acid battery in there. Those are absolutely junk. So what I did is that I went on Amazon and purchased the lithium iron phosphate battery, the replacement battery pack, and put into those the UPS. So because I literally just get those UPS for free because after the battery run down, people just toss them out. So I got them and replaced the battery with lithium ion battery. So right now, every return pump has that dedicated own lithium ion battery backup. I also dry run them. So approximately I can survive, the one return pump can survive on that UPS approximately from 8 hours to 12 hours at full power for the return pump.
And that's automatic, right? You don't have to be
automatic. Well, when they sense the power is out, they automatically kick on. So so that will give me time to bring up my gas generator as well as my lithium ion power station.
We got a dog that's not happy.
Yeah, no, my wife and daughter just are coming home, and the dog is excited.
He is happy, right?
Yeah, she's very happy. Zoe, come here.
So
there we go.
Recently, I got more. People give me more of this UPS unit. So right now, my flow pumps also have their dedicated lithium ion battery backup. I did test them, dry run them. So on a flow pump like a gyre pump, that lithium ion battery lasts for more than 24 hours. I just, okay. Past 24 hours, just shut it down. So basically, my return pump can run for at least 8 hours, and my flow pump can run 24 hours.
So if you're like on the other side of the world, Dong, then at least you got some protection. You can get back from wherever you are in time to get the generator turned off. Right.
Providing all the water is still in there.
Fan from Tidal Gardens, what's up there? Fan says, I wish I had solar, a good payback here, but it's about 20 years. Yeah, that's the thing.
A problem here too.
Yeah,
well,
same here.
There's no sun in Ohio.
There's less sun in Pennsylvania.
A lot less here in Vermont too. Yeah.
But solar panel has one drawback though. If your power is out, and you do not have a battery storage for your solar panel does not work.
Right, you gotta have a battery.
Yeah, you gotta have a battery backup.
Yep. So right now I have another backup. It's my wife's Jeep. So she got a 4xe, the Jeep Wrangler, and the 2024 model. They come with a breakout box. That means so you basically plug into the charging port, and then you become a 4-unit power outlet. You can use that to power a lot of things, and that the battery in those plug-in hybrids are really powerful, actually. So well, that would definitely give me some more backup protection. And also, there's a gasoline engine in there too, so they always can turn that on and to charge the battery.
It's always good to have options.
Yep, it's always good to have options. So I think that
it's not enough to have the options here to make sure that all the options work when you need them to work.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people with generators, when the time comes, the generator won't start because they haven't started the generator for a year.
Got to exercise every week.
Yes.
On the computer.
Yep, right. Including the battery backup. So I do exercise them.
Right.
So like last year, actually, it works really well. This kind of setup because that last year the town came over to change my meter, the power meter. they told me that, oh, it's going to be the early morning. You're going to be out of power for 30 minutes. So that's before the lights on. So I was sitting in the basement and on my computer, and then I heard the people ring the doorbell, and then those are two workers there. Oh, we're all set, all done. I said, really? So because that in the fish room, there's no interruption at all because the light is not on. So basically, the pump is running as usual. Everything is as usual. So that's a good, very good case scenario. I didn't even know they shut off my power for 30 minutes and to replace that power meter. So
Fan makes a good point here too. It's a good idea to get generator service once every year or two, regardless.
Yep.
I get mine serviced twice a year.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
All sorts of twigs and gunk. You can't believe what goes in those things.
I told you guys, I think Andrew and Dong, the story about my generator experience. I had a full house backup generator in Connecticut when I had a 250-gallon tank. And this was when Hurricane Superstorm Sandy hit. And I had broken down that tank 3 weeks before that had happened. But we had a full house backup generator that had a catastrophic failure a week before that storm. And the tech that came out said, yeah, can't even help fix it right now because I'm going to have to be focused on servicing the generators that work. Right. So
also, what do you plan for, right? How much
anything can happen.
What do you want to do? How much do you want to spend? What is it? Each person has to evaluate that themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's the key too, that, you have to look, it's like a risk management problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I've got a backup generator to my backup generator. I got a portable propane generator.
When the power goes out, you know what I check? My koi pond.
Yeah. Because there's more money there than having a reef tank.
The koi that makes these reef tanks look like bubblegum machines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's get to the main topic tonight. And the purpose of the show was to talk about the future of reef keeping. And I think talking about what Sanjay went through and what he's learned from that and what he's planning to do in the future certainly kind of is relevant. But all of you guys, have been in the hobby for a really, really long time. You've done a lot of experimenting. You've tested a lot of equipment. And so I thought it would just be great to have all of you on so Dong and I can kind of throw some questions your way to talk about your impressions of what do you think the future holds for this hobby. And so I guess I want to kind of get it started by, talking about looking at the past and trying to see what we've learned from past experiences and trying to project out what the future holds. So and any one of you guys can jump in to answer this question, but are there any methods, equipment that you've used, methodologies, maintenance routines that you've employed, at the beginning of your reef keeping careers that you ditched for a while, but now you're back to doing, and you think it's something that hobbyists should have on their radar screens?
I'm actually back using some metal halides on a couple of times.
Oh, there we go.
Me too, but that ain't gonna make the difference between killing or not killing.
No, but it's he asked for Back to the Future. What are we using now that we used in the past? I mean, considering that between the three of us, we have over 100 years of experience, which is kind of scary.
I think bio balls are going to come back in some fashion.
We talked about that. It's setting up a nitrate filter and an oxygenator.
Yeah. It could be the ones that float around in these koi baki, rotary drums where it's rotating in the air, plastic K1 media. But these were the days where everybody complained that there were nitrate factories. And now all of a sudden nitrate's not so bad, and you hear all the people about that I have no nitrate, I crashed the tank, and you can degas the tank at the same time. I really truly believe plastic media of some sort will come back and degas water.
Yeah.
And if you get a little nitrate from it, so what?
Well, we talked about it for something else. That there was something else. I mean, driving off CO2, raising pH, possibly.
You take out nitrogen gas. So you take out nitrogen gas, and you actually level your dissolved oxygen closer to atmosphere, 7 instead of 8, 9.
Yeah, look at this. This is what I got recently.
Fireballs. There you go.
Fireballs, yes.
I still have them.
Because then nobody.
I still have them too.
On Amazon, $3 because nobody buys them.
No.
Well, that is my I'm gonna do experiment because my nitrate keep hitting 0. I'm so sick and tired of.
Perfect. That's a perfect one.
Yeah.
For you.
Here we go. That's what I'm gonna try.
Now, what kind of chamber are you going to put them in? You going to build a circular chamber with a spinning wheel on top, or are you just going to have water trickle over them?
I put them in a filter sock or filter mesh,
and then just have the water coming down over them.
Yeah, water coming down, and then you all over it. So 90 balls, $3.
No, I remember when Albert Teal was selling a gallon for $30, and people couldn't get enough of them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these technologies have their place. What has happened is we've started to understand more of what they do.
Right.
And as we understand more of what they do, we know how to use them better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key, right? I mean,
Yep.
Over the years, all these technologies came and went because the reef hobby is a fad hobby.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a copycat hobby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's a marketing hobby. It's whatever's marketed best is what takes off.
And at some point, we kind of deviated away from trying to understand why things work.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the more we understand why things work, then we can find out what the best application for those technologies is. Right?
I'm convinced.
I mean, is there really a difference between a $3,000 skimmer and a $1,000 skimmer?
I don't think. I don't
we
think,
don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
But I do think, these beginners start a tank, they buy some corals and they buy some clownfish, and the next thing you know, the clownfish either have Bruxella, urinema, and now they're saying, "Oh my God, we have to separate from the coral and go fallow for 72 days, and I don't have another tank or electricity to run this other tank, nor do I have the meds to treat them because, the FDA is banning stuff. So what I used to have, like formalin or whatever, I don't want to use that. It's going to kill my lungs or this or that. Chloroquine phosphate, oh no, I can't sell that anymore." So I think that this hobby needs to approach the freshwater hobby at some point where you need to be able to do in-tank treatments and not lose your fish and not separate your coral. And if you get a disease, you just throw some shit in and doesn't wipe out your coral. I think we're far away from that, but I think you're closer than you think. How many people have had a outbreak of velvet and it took them out of the hobby? They're done. And they tried again and the velvet was still there. And every fish they put in, it's heartening. You can't, I call them killers, but it's not their fault. They don't have room for a quarantine tank. And you can't treat the display tank. And by the way, now that you can treat whatever you can treat, the meds that you used to be able to get, it's now half of that. It's even harder to get antibiotics. It's even harder to get Metro. It's even hard. Chloroquine phosphate, very hard to get. So I think we're going towards like where the foreigners are, which is scary because they have no medicine. And I really think the in-tank treatment is the difference between fresh and salt water.
Mm-hmm.
A freshwater tank gets sick, They throw a little malachite green in there. They warm the temperature up. They add a little salt. Voila. Their big shovel-nosed catfish feels better.
Does that impact, Andrew, like a planted tank? I mean, are there collateral damage to plants if you have a planted tank with medicines?
I don't know, Paletta. What do you hear?
I've treated with methylene blue in this tank. I've treated with a couple other things. The plants may slow down growth, but once it's taken out of the water, you throw some carbon in a week later, it's gone. The plants seemingly come back for the most part.
Right.
I don't think I've lost any plants because I've had to treat the tank.
Right.
And that's adding on to what Andrew was saying is, in addition to be able to treat the fish, understanding better what coral diseases are that we have in our tank and having better ways to manage those.
That's a whole nother ball.
Because we're even farther away from understanding that.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's where the future needs to go, is understanding.
We're going there. We're going where no man wants to go beyond. We are sequencing brown jelly. We are sequencing bacterial infections. We got genetic strains already. We're pretty comfortable. We're comfortable that it's both parasitic and bacterial, unfortunately, and that everybody throws kung fu antibiotics at it, and they're forgetting about the protozoa part of it. We don't know which comes first, whether it's chicken or the egg, but I will tell you that protozoa is not going to be hit by Metro. Metro is like orange juice. So you're going to need a vet script anyway. It's probably going to need second or third rounds of Tenadazole or something much better than Metro.
What do you guys think about this comment here by Aquaculture? Methods driven by ICP and aquabiomics type testing will continue to be the future.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think it'll go beyond that.
It comes back within a month or two before your tank's all gone.
Right.
No, things are going to have to get faster because when you're wiping out a tank, it's not a month long. It tends to happen much quicker than you get the tests back.
You got to take a split step and move in action before you get your stuff back. Yes.
I think these aquacultured fish are more, pest-free and disease-free. You don't agree? I can't hear you.
No, I think that the aquaculture clownfish actually is...
Can't hear you, Andrew.
Uh-oh. I think we lost Andrew's microphone.
Andrew, we lost your audio.
He's very... Andrew, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. No, we can't hear you.
We lost your audio. You back?
No.
All
right, he's gonna try to.
Yeah, I see him muted on the bottom of his screen.
Yeah, you're muted, Andrew.
Any better?
There you go. Back.
All right.
You're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vet wants to take the sample and fly it to the labs and see which bacteria it is and resistance and sensitivities and which one is good and which one's bad. That whole process takes 4 to 5 days. Sometimes you don't got 4 to 5 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to make a move and take a guess. So my old standby is Cipro bath, but he's got the needles, so he can pick anything he wants. And we've been finding that the fluorphenicol, chlorophenicol seems to be resistant the least, maybe because they just haven't been used a lot.
It was used in the 90s, but since then it really hasn't been used.
Right. Batril, resistant. Big R's.
Oxalinic acid, resistant.
Oxalinic acid, doing less and less.
Yeah.
Less and less. And I think we're going to be able to come up with the parasitic protozoa thing from this brown jelly. I really think we're onto it and sequencing it. What if I told you I had a 90% ratio of identicalness to urinema?
Okay.
Wow.
Now you may have a cure for both. But what if I told you it had to be compounded at some pharmacy and you'd have zero shot of getting this in the aquarium industry? Am I helping or not? Or are you gonna like friend your? Everyone's gonna get 2 dogs and a cat, go to their vet and get doggy and get vet medicine, right? And pretend.
Yep.
So what you're saying is for my $10 chromis, I'm going to have to spend $100 in medications to keep it alive. If I can get that medication.
If you can get that vet the right medicine. And by the way, if it's all the way in the muscle and in the bloodstream, it may not work anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Dong, your Rats wanted to you to continue your thoughts in terms of the disagreement you have with Sanjay on aquaculture fish in terms of disease.
Yeah, because they're from most of the clownfish are aquaculture. But the problem about clownfish is that the brook infection is basically so universal, so much. So basically, most of the clownfish actually during their captive the breeding, for some reason that brook outbreak is just so common.
Really?
And but with that said, I don't know about the yellow tang or the other fish, but just the clownfish alone, it seems like it's just a lot more common than before these days.
Rich Ross says the aquaculture fish are only as good as they're holding. The worst infections I've ever dealt with was from clownfish breeders that really had no protocols.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, you really have 2 choices, formalin or chloroquine with brook. I would personally rather treat them in chloroquine phosphate and not copper, and that takes care of brook. I do all my clowns in chloroquine, but not a lot of people use chloroquine. It's a little bit of an art to use it.
Yeah, Than says, I hope more quarantine fish becomes the norm. It's that would be awesome. It's just more expensive, right? I mean, that's
the problem, right?
I buy it by the kilo.
I mean, if you want to increase the number of hobbyists, right, you can't be increasing the cost of everything.
Listen, that's why fresh water, they heat the water up, they throw some salt, and they put some pretty blue malachite green in the water, and they're all done.
Yeah.
And they don't have a quarantine tank. And I think that's the way we need to, something like that needs to happen in saltwater, in my opinion, so you don't lose those hobbyists that tried and failed and everything died with velvet. That should be a must. I don't know whether it's physiologically, I mean, we could do it, but I don't know with corals in it, we can physiologically do it. It's possible to do it in a bear tank. That's easy.
Yeah. But I'm wondering how many new hobbyists get out because they have their fish get sick right away. Their corals are fine, but they lose the fish and they go, well, without the fish, I don't want to do this.
A lot, I think. Then they're told that to either take the corals out and keep the fish in and medicate, or take the fish out and leave the corals in, and they have to go buy a separate tank. They don't really know how to quarantine, so half of that doesn't work. Like they lose half the fish in QT, and then the tank's still infected, and the corals start looking worse because there's no fish poop, and the phosphates and nitrates bottom out, and the whole thing turns into a why'd I ever get involved in this?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think so many more people, like around here, 5 of the 6 shops that did saltwater are all predominantly freshwater now.
Yeah.
Because they got tired of people just dropping out, and so they don't lose freshwater customers for the most part. Once you're in freshwater
is booming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so at some point in the future, maybe this becomes an elitist hobby, right? There's a certain entry point that would keep a lot of people out of it. So, does that make sense?
I think it's already getting there because, like, when I'm in
Oh,
shops and I
it-
go to
it's
shows,
there,
I
it's
see
there.
fewer and fewer people in their 20s. It's mostly people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that have money that can do this.
And spare time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The time factor has to be considered. When you're 20s and you have 2 new little babies, you don't have the time to be putzing around in a tank for 6 hours at night.
Is that bad?
Depends how bad the crying is.
Yeah. Got to train them.
I got to give a shout out to Kenny at High Tide Aquatics. He's doing quarantine fish now. He's even shipping those quarantine fish, doing it online. He's going to be a guest next month with we're going to be talking about local fish stores and all that stuff. But I think it can't be easy for a local fish store to have that added expense to set up the quarantine system.
No.
And I think he's doing it right, and hopefully we can have more that can find the way that he can do what he is doing and find a way to make it work financially.
The problem is they bring these clean fish home, but in their tank they never got rid of the.
Oh, you can't hear you again. Can't hear you. There you go. Nope.
Oh, nope.
Nope.
Maybe try to log off, Andrew, and log back on.
Sadly, around here, I've had a couple shops before they got out of saltwater tell me their basic goal was to sell them before they died. That was their goal of selling.
Yeah, absolutely. Fish. Yeah.
I mean, what they used to do to do that is they used to advertise when their fish were coming in, and they would sell them out of the box, so they never even touched their tanks. And the hope was to sell them so fast they couldn't die. And then there was the added fun that I found out is they didn't give you any kind of guarantee if they did die after you bought them right out of the box.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? So again, what's the future, right? What does the future look like?
Old
guys with
tanks.
Old guys with tanks. That's the future.
Yeah.
You're leaving out the old women then. Come on.
Andrew, you're muted now. Okay.
So I mean, the fresh water seems to be taking off at all these local fish stores, and marine they swear off.
Well, literally none of them anymore have SPS corals because everyone can propagate them, so they don't want to compete with that.
No.
So they made decent margins on that in the past. They're having difficulty selling dry goods because they compete with online vendors.
Right.
Yeah.
And their whole thing is beginners, but they tend to tick those people off. I mean, I've been in shops probably within the last year where someone said I want to start a reef tank, and the owner of the store said that's too difficult. Why don't you start a freshwater tank first?
Right. Yeah.
And so the other thing that's going on with the ornamental fish market right now are the tariffs, right? And
that's a whole nother ball of wax. And they can make phony invoices for the value of those fish. And my hunch is the fish itself won't be marked up that much, but the LED light, the
technology,
skimmer, I think they're going up. They're going to go up 10%.
Or more.
I think it's more than 10%. They're probably like 20 to 25%. Yeah.
But if you look at the last 5 to 10 years, inflation has jacked up the prices 10 to 20%.
Correct. That's
already.
It's an insult of 10 or 15 above the insult.
Yeah. So it just keeps going up and up and up. Eventually, you hit the law of diminishing returns. Should I spend $2,000 to start a 10-gallon tank?
Right.
Well, the question really is why do I need that skimmer? We started the tanks. We built these tanks. We had a little tube of air.
Yeah, I built my own skimmers. You built your own skimmers.
$5, right? And it produced foam and it produced the skimming. Somehow, somewhere, we lost all of that. And we transformed it into these $3,000 skimmers. I don't see why and how we went that route and why we can't go back to that route.
You could maybe with just bio balls and on a power filter. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, and an air-driven skimmer. I mean, you can buy an air pump still cheap. And I mean, the toughest thing is finding the air stones, and you can make those yourself.
Yeah.
You know, those air stones used to work really well.
The wood ones, the big wood ones, right?
Yeah. The Sanders, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big
I mean,
Sanders.
that's the point. My point is that we've gone so far away from the simple things that used to work, and I don't know how and why that happened. Right? Maybe we are not more DIY people anymore. Right? We want turnkey solutions.
I think it's a lot to do with marketing and advertisement.
I think it's
because the simple thing does not make people money.
Right. Well, and also the time. I mean, the time it took to change out an air stone was a pain in the ass. Now
they get clogged, right? They get
clogged, or you got to dump out the whole skimmer because a bunch of gunk settles at the bottom of it.
Right.
So you had to spend time. Now with these new skimmers that are a lot more expensive, you just take off the top, wipe it down, put it back on, bing, bang, boom, you're done. It's very fast and efficient. A lot of the hobby, well, in my opinion, a lot of the people that have gotten out of the hobby got out of it because time more than money. How much time could they spend?
I don't know. I mean, I look at my tanks and I go, I don't spend much time with the tank, but I don't spend much time. Once it's operating and functional, you don't spend much time on these things.
I tend to, at least the staff does, but I don't.
Yeah, I still spend a fair amount of time tinkering and futzing around.
In 1 hour, all my projects are done on the tank.
Right.
1 hour.
Yeah.
That's if everything's going okay, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I've made it so I can do a water change on the 550-gallon water change in 15 minutes.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Let's dig into lighting, because one of you guys mentioned Halides is going to make a comeback. Was that Andrew?
No, that was me.
That was Mike. I know, Andrew, you're using Halides still. But
I hope they
Sanjay's the lover of Halides. No one loves Halides as much as Sanjay. He made his name with Halides.
But Dong, you had some thoughts, I think, in terms of the future of lighting, right? In terms where we're heading, and go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the future of lighting is first of all, these days that the hobby become a decoration, seriously. So the metal halide is just not that attractive. So think about this way is that when a person want to get into a saltwater hobby, they got into a local fish store. And then metal halide is not going to sell and make money for a fish store, because fish store, the first priority is to make money. And also they will choose to sell the equipment that carry a high profit margin. Metal halide is not part of it, because now, first of all, they are not readily available. They're big and hard to find balls, all that kind of thing. But for a local fish store, when you look at a little LED pendant that costs $1,000, which carry a $300 to $400 profit margin, that's what they were trying to push, those kind of thing. So when the hobby is exposed to LED, they probably will never heard about metal halide at all. So I think the hobby, the trend of hobby, especially the lighting, is driven by marketing and YouTube, social media, and marketing again, and marketing again, and marketing again. For example, you can buy a $1,000 light, and also you can buy a $200 light. They do exactly the same thing, can grow your coral, but you don't see the $200 light in the local fish store because they do not carry sufficient amount of profit margin. They only see there is a $1,000 light. And then also, how many people willing to spend on a $1,000 light? Not that many people, because they don't see the $200 option. They only see the $1,000 option. So what they do, just like what we're talking about, they're just not getting into the hobby.
And if you got a bigger tank, you need 3, maybe 4 of those $1,000 fixtures.
Right.
That's a big expense. That's $4,000 for lighting.
We made them on our tanks, so it's a big expense. I mean, that's one of the reasons.
How much are the Illuma Magic X4s? I think I have 16 of them on the 900. Are they $800 a piece?
something like that. It's pretty
Yeah, I think
expensive. The
$7.99.
Lumen Magic, yeah, they're pretty,
Yeah.
pretty expensive.
Times 16 of them
Yeah.
for the coverage.
So
It's
one
10K.
thing, you
Yeah.
can see the light behind me. That's
By the
a
way,
repeater light.
everybody that walks in my house thinks and sees the anemone tank. Aesthetically, the Delua X4 light to the eyes is the most pleasing light. If you had a vote, it'd be 9 out of 10 people.
I thought you said it was the Ecotech Pro Blues.
That would get one vote too.
So you like the Deluas even better than the Blues now?
I just had Lyra here, and like 5 guys called Delua up from here, switching lights.
You're playing with a lot of different lights. You don't just have the Deluas and the Ecotechs. You have several other ones. How do those compare?
I actually like those. Unfortunately, the Reef Factory, the flares the company went bankrupt.
Yeah, they supposedly just went bankrupt in Europe, but they're supposedly still distributing here.
I kind of like those lights. I like the idea behind the Quanta light that what's his name makes, Luca.
Yeah, Luca. Yeah.
But it's one spectrum, and it's a very Sanjay, this is right up here. Al, he made the bulb look identical properties to the yellow piss Ushio 14K.
That's the best club in the world.
It was the
Girls
best.
corals.
Yeah. but then you need his 2 meso bars or 4 of those bars to complement the yellow P. And we get about 50% from the light from the meso bars, which look like just Orphic blue violet. And the rest from these monstrous lights. They look like halides, but they're LEDs.
Yeah, those are high bay lighting. But
they're high bay lighting.
With,
High bay lighting.
Actually, I found the original manufacturer for those shell.
Right.
So basically, the difference is that Luca, I think what he did is to change the LED composition.
Right.
The spectrum, and that's the thing. Otherwise, it's just a high bay lighting LED.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if that light was able to change, so I could add more blues, and if I was able to change that light, that would be a serious contender. At the moment,
you are able to. So basically, all you need to do is call the Chinese factory.
Yeah, call the
and
factory.
give them the spec.
Factory, Andrew.
Pay the tariff, and you're done.
Yeah. So basically,
I can do the same. I can do the same thing. I can do the same thing at Orphic.
Sure.
Make my own custom chips.
All you need to do is just call them up. They were more than happy to just retrofit whatever spectrum you want, but the same high bay lighting.
Sanjay, I don't know how you dealt with that with those. Those weren't even Ushio 14s. Those were like Ushio 4s, 4000s, 4400s.
That's because you guys don't.
It had a blue spike that nobody saw.
That's not true. But whatever.
No, Sanjay liked the Ushio 6500s. Those were the yellows, but he used to grow corals.
Iwasaki 6500s.
Those were green. Those were green.
Iwasaki 6500.
Yeah, Iwasaki 6500.
So hold it, Sanjay. Will you be able to grow corals faster with those versus what you currently have?
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Really?
Oh,
I can't imagine faster growth than what you had.
Well, he wasn't doing ammonia dosing. He wasn't doing quite as aggressive calcium and alkalinity. If he was doing that with what he had, he used to grow acropore milliporas into colonies. Literally, you couldn't reach your arms around them.
You know Daniel Liu with these Reef-Unos. Have you guys seen them?
Yeah.
The Reef-Unos?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He suggests don't even take up the white light. Just take up the lime. More green. And
more green?
More green. And it will give the coral a lot more green spectrum and without burning the whites on the coral. Just an interesting way of doing it.
But the green color is pretty irrelevant. I think green color will make a human eye perception brighter.
Believe it or not, if you look at depth in the water, the greens travel pretty damn far, pretty good deep.
The greens don't get used that much.
Yeah, the green doesn't get.
There's some chlorophyll there at 550-ish and all that stuff.
So what I did before is that I actually, that's back maybe like 10 years ago, I went to China one time. I met a bunch of LED factory. I brought them a radium bulb, 20K radium bulb. I said, duplicate this. They actually did it. So hold on.
You have it.
Man, he's got more stuff in his house than Andrew and I do.
Got a little show and tell going on here.
Yeah.
Did he make you a hairlight or did he make you an LED?
Oh, no, they make me an LED. Hold on.
Right.
I just tried to dig
to
this
me.
thing out.
They didn't make it to you on the spot, did they?
Oh, not really. They have all this
I think the Delua is the
Look at
closest
that.
thing to the radium 20K I can find.
They
Besides the
give me
Kessel.
this guy.
What is that?
And that is LED, exactly have the spectrum of radium 20K.
Show me the spectrum.
That looks like a circle for Olympics.
Oh, no. The circle is for my ring light. So this is what it is. So
Okay.
Oh, the panel. That's the panel?
yeah, that's the panel. So with so many LED chips on it, and then they have this equipment, the very fancy stuff, like a gigantic space ball or something like that.
And then what
Yeah.
happens when you plug that in? What happens?
Yeah. What have you put that on a tank?
Yeah, this thing is 100 watts. You grow coral really well, and you look exactly like radium 20K because
It does, huh?
Yeah, because they use the spectrum to match the radium 20K.
Okay.
What kind of part does that put out?
I actually totally forgot. The part that is very similar to the 250 watt radium 20K. That's what they measure.
Send it to me. I'll test it.
Yeah, they won't want to duplicate this. But at that time, I was thinking about maybe I should make my own LED brand. But the problem is that the cost of this thing is not marketable.
Right.
It's so expensive.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you did one. If you do like
What is
100 or 1,000.
People are paying
There is
$1,000
more than
for
100
this.
chips
Come on.
on it.
People are paying $1,000. You can do it for 500.
I think the radium 20K is the most beautiful bulb in the world, but Sanjay thinks
it is.
Sanjay likes
I
them.
love that bulb.
Sanjay likes a little green M&Ms and yellow urine combined in his water.
That's because I like to grow corals.
Right.
Well, the funny
Not
thing
just
is
look
that,
at them.
yeah, the Andrew, you were talking about green LED, right?
Yeah.
There are quite a few of them on it. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of green LED.
Yeah.
So this is approximately, last time I lost count, there's about more than 200 chips on it. And also they manage it to like a circular pattern. See that? Try to mimic the metal halide has a center ring.
Huh.
And then the rest of them are fill out the space, the spread. But then there's a center ring there. On that center ring, there's a lot of green LED.
But you know what? But guys, radium is one of those bulbs you can still actually get. You can get them.
But I
You
saw
get
you
them right
bought them
now.
all.
And you can get Tulio's ballast and Tulio's
Fixture.
enclosures, non-heat enclosures, and you can run 20K right now, radiums in a blink. They're not disappearing so fast.
Guess what? I have a pair of beautiful ballasts that can dry radium ball and HQI mode
Yep.
sitting there.
Yep.
Every time I want to toss them in the trash can, I tell myself, don't do it.
No, send them to Meckley. He'll take them.
No, I want them.
Send them to Andrew. Andrew loves stuff.
Hey, let's also talk about UV radiation. And Don, you had a point I think you wanted to make also about UVA in terms of the future of LEDs and whether or not that is something that should be a thing.
Yeah, because we have so much attention on UV spectrum on LED, mostly from metal halide day, all that kind of thing, and so much push. And even if you look at the latest generation of LED, from the Matrix, from the Rebreather, from Radion, they all incorporated UVA on it. Well, I always have this question. I just want you guys' opinion. Every scientific article I ever found, including review article, is consensually talking about UV damaging to coral, period. There is no benefit to coral for UV spectrum. Every scientific literature, UVA, UVB.
There is benefit to the seawater and the top surface of the water, irrespective whether it's getting to the coral or not. And we don't know that whether it's the A or the B, okay, but it's doing something, cleansing the water, or it plays a role.
It may be
on the
bactericidal in
surface.
some ways that helps to
Right.
cleanse the water. That's the hypothesis that Tullio has proposed.
Right.
Whether that's true or not, unless someone runs the study and has a certain groups of bacteria and runs it under UVA and UVB under a halide, no one's going to know.
So then we should use
four
a
little
sterilizer.
UVs sitting on a big fixture. Four UVs are doing all this for you. I don't believe it.
UV lights or halides.
Light fixture.
UV LEDs, are you saying?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
they
think
only have like 3 or 4 in there. What are they doing?
Yeah, I don't
I
think
think
the
the
UV,
UV
on the
LEDs,
LEDs
the
do
real
anything.
true UV LEDs disintegrate like 5 times faster than the rest of the diodes.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
they really can't put them together.
You know?
Actually,
They're clear, Sanjay. They're no color.
Yeah.
Chris Meckley says, ask yourself one simple question. Does the ocean get UV?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It also gets to 82 degrees in the summer. Why don't you run your tanks at 82 degrees?
Because that most of the coral actually living a much cooler temperature though.
Really? At
Yeah.
30 feet of water or 20 feet of water?
I think that the most SPS actually come in at around 76 degrees Celsius.
I think you better check your literature again.
Huh. So I do also have well, actually, yeah, that's what the literature said. And also another thing though, there is a recent publication. Actually, they talk about Vibrio bacteria. So when temperature rise above like 80 Fahrenheit, and then they start to infect the coral, then causing many of the coral disease.
Yep.
So the coral can tolerate higher temperature, but does not mean they actually benefit from a higher temperature though.
The corals can tolerate UV. Doesn't mean they benefit from UV.
They just get
They
pigment.
are
They get
tolerating
pigment
the
from it.
UV.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they can
Absolutely
tolerate
correct.
it.
They're tolerated.
No, and the
the
problem in a
thing-
closed
yeah.
system with higher temperatures is you get what's a biological process called Q210. For every 10 degrees you go up, the metabolism of bacteria increases twofold.
Yes.
So if you increase from 77 to 82, you've basically gone up probably around 50%. That's when you start getting bacterial infections become more problematic. Higher
100%.
temperatures
Yeah.
lead to more problems in a
Yeah.
closed system. In the ocean, where you're constantly getting washed with clean water and everything,
Right.
it's not quite as
Right.
problematic.
Right.
I mean, that's
Yes.
one of the problems that we typically get is people tend to think of the reef tank as a small section of the reef, and the two aren't really related. They're saltwater and they have corals in them, but biomass versus the volume of water is incomparable.
Yeah. The biomass
there-
is huge in our tanks compared to the volume of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the water movement in the ocean is much larger. So there is an article published. They said that due to the biological activity from the coral actually a few Fahrenheit hotter than the surrounding water. Then because in the ocean, there's such a large movement of water, so the coral get cooled down effectively. But in a reef tank, because we cannot duplicate this kind of large water movement, so our coral actually may be much hotter than the surrounding environment. So if our tank at 80 degrees, maybe our coral maybe reach about 81, 82.
I don't. To me, that's getting me too nervous already. I already felt my heartbeats are skipping at 81, 82.
Yeah,
My-
81,
yeah,
82
My
is
tanks
enough.
in the summer always ran at 82 to 83 degrees.
Whose tanks?
Mine
At 10 or
at home.
No, at
at
home.
home?
Yeah.
No problems with it. You were probably a half a degree away from like instant death. No,
Maybe, you know.
Yeah.
I
But
think
my,
same thing.
I ran my tank at the edge. I'm not going to say that everybody.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah, because you're running the radii 100%. But actually, what I'm saying is what happened to Sanjay, you're absolutely correct that your tank can run at that degree because your coral already adapted to it.
Probably.
And you already did a lot of long-term selection about
Yeah.
your coral.
Yeah.
And also your corals are 30 years old. So
Right.
they definitely
Well,
adapted to that.
No,
So
I mean,
like most-
I'm not going to deny that maybe they adapted. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've discussed this, Sanjay. You always had survival of the fittest was your motto. Okay, they're either going to
Yeah,
survive or die. If they survive, they thrive. If they die,
Mike, what's the highest you ever let your tank go up to?
Mine?
Mike,
me, 80.
80, and like you start chilling fast, right?
Yeah, I started bringing it down. I started turning the lights off and things like that
Right.
because my corals have not adapted to a higher temperature. I keep it at 77. It
Yeah.
goes up to 78 in the summer and 76 in the winter.
Yeah,
So,
that's normal.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't move a degree per day. It moves maybe a
A
0.4.
degree of
0.5.
season. A degree of season.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, I'll push 80.
I have found that
Yeah.
You will?
any kind of major swings in temperature, salinity, or alkalinity all tend to cause stresses in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
My tanks range from 72 in the winter to 80 plus 82 in the summer.
72.
72.
It
72.
You're
You're ready to do a deep water like cold water.
Cold water.
You-
Water tank.
a few more degrees.
In
You
in
get bleeding
February-
leafy dragons.
In February, in the heart of winter, my tank's running at 72 degrees.
Wow. Well, the heaters can't keep up?
No, I mean, I would add more heaters to it, basically. Yeah, you're right. The existing heaters can't keep up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, actually,
Yeah.
I do know people run their SPS tank at 72 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The corals are thriving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're fine at 72.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I found 68 is like the limit. You bring it down to 68, you're right on the border. Some will make it, some won't.
Yeah, 68 starts to hit the borderline.
Yeah.
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 So I do have observation. So just one example experiment unit, only one. So after I keep my LPS system around 76 to 75, sometimes as low as 74, I do not get brown jelly again. For 10 years, no brown jelly whatsoever. But then one time that one of my torch actually get into a small tank and then it got heat up in the summer, it got melted by brown jelly, but never happened on my lower temperature LPS tank.
Makes total sense to me.
We used to do the same.
Scientifically and from where those animals are located.
We used to do the same thing whenever Fiji corals used to come in and we were getting RTN. If you'd bring the temperature down to 74 and dose Lugol's iodine, you could stop the RTN in its tracks. I mean, 74 seems to be, that and below seems to be, allow the corals to bounce back and fight the bacteria or the protozoan or whatever the infection are.
Right.
Above that, the higher you get, the closer you get to where the bacteria are going to win or the pathogens are going to win.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys have seen too?
Yes. Yes.
So that brings up a question.
Especially from Australia, by the way, which is usually cooler water.
Cooler waters.
Yeah.
So instead of using Kung Fu dips or Kung Fu antibiotic,
Yeah.
what happened? We just simply lower our temperature in general.
Yeah.
You will reduce the amount of bacteria and protozoa. The question is, does the tank need to be treated, and treated with what? And we're trying to figure that out.
Well,
We have about
we
five.
could go back to doing iodine again, doing Lugol's iodine in a slightly higher dose, maybe the method we go back to, because that's what we used to do.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
Maybe we find that in order to kill this protozoa, we're killing coral, and we have to go back to the old methods. We don't know yet. We are in sequencing method right now.
Well,
We have
what's
about
interesting is,
we were injecting scolies with brown jelly, and we have time lapse of it actually brown gelling. And then they send the samples to University of Florida, and they're in sequencing. And you can see it's both parasite and antibiotic, and all those kung fu dips and all those antibiotics only hit one part of it, bacteria. And they're leaving the protozoa out there to attack another one.
you could try the Lugol's iodine, see if that does anything.
Yeah, we're going to play.
In the 90s, whenever we used to have that, the drug we used of choice was chloramphenicol. The problem
Chlorphenicol is still, by the way, still a good drug.
Yeah, it is.
Not very resistant around.
No, because it's been so seldomly used because 1% of the population gets leukemia when they come in contact with it.
Right.
So
and now there's a better version. There's a better version called fluorphenicol.
Okay.
Hey, Andrew, thank God that you guys are doing all these, experiments and testing and whatnot in your lab for us hobbyists. It's a godsend. Thank you very much. I think I could speak for all reef tank hobbyists that you're an incredible resource for us, and appreciate it. My question to you is there a path forward?
Don't get coy.
Don't get coy. That's your advice.
They are.
We'll leave them out of the conversation.
All right, leave them out. They're like, make this hobby look cheap, first of all. Secondly, the flukes on them, like, it's easy to get marine fluke off of fish, like by 20 times, because they bury underneath those scales. And the third thing is the markups from breeder to dealer to hobbyist. It's just gross. There's opaqueness is so opaque out there. And by the way, they're not easy. They get bacterial infections and they get parasites, and you can lose them. And they need serious clean water. No bullshit.
That's you're taking a pretty big hit in terms of your livestock when you lose some of those animals.
Andrew's convinced me not to convert my tank into a koi tank.
Well, Andy,
you get eaten by herons if you don't have the water deep enough. I learned that one.
The question I have for you, Andrew, and anybody really,
minimum.
Anybody can answer this question is, do we have a path forward, in the future in terms of trying to have more cooperation between what we're learning as hobbyists with the scientific community? How can we collaborate more with the scientific community? Is that something that's going to be feasible?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to do it. We think we have a paper out July on this whole brown jelly thing. But I'm 100% confident that it will not include any anti-protozoa that the hobby has in it, like Metro. Metro will not work. So whatever we come up with, it's going to need a vet antibiotic. Okay? And then the bacteria is going to be the bacteria, and we'll figure it out. I don't think we'll be doing kung fu stuff. I think we'll figure out the bacteria is sensitive to XYZ, and you're going to need some other anti-protozoa. Whether that anti-protozoa you get from a vet or you get, God forbid it's not reef safe. I mean, that's what we're worried about. But I think the answers are coming very shortly.
There seemed to be a period of time recently within the past couple of years where a lot of people, Mike, you've done it, I've done it, Sanjay, I think you tried it. I'm sure Andrew, you've tried it. Hit the tank with antibiotics, full tank treatment,
Cipro.
kind of
Right.
Cipro, oxalinic acid. And I think that was a lot of people, like hobbyists out there, thought that was the answer to their problems. That they saw RTN here and there.
Keith, it solves half the problem, and you still got the protozoa out there, and it comes back.
I think we treat the symptoms when we do Cipro or we do any of the antibiotics, but when you go find out what is the source that's causing this proliferation of the bacteria that's causing the problem.
Right.
I mean, it's the same way with cancer. There's what's called the fertile field hypothesis of cancer. You have someone coming with cancer, you treat it, you do surgery, you do chemo, you get rid of it, it's supposedly gone. They go back to living the same lifestyle. Guess what? The cancer comes back. What a shock. Well, you have this bacterial infection in your tank, you manage it with Cipro or oxalic acid or whatever, but you keep doing exactly the same thing and it comes back. Again, you're shocked. No, this is how nature works. If you don't change what's causing it. I mean, that's why I appreciate the work that Andrew's doing, but also the work that Salem's doing in trying to help us understand the biome and the microbiome better. Because until we understand exactly what's going on in the bacteria, the mucus, and the surrounding environment around the corals, we're never really going to be able to manage these bacterial infections. Because you can have a tank that looks great for 5 years, and all of a sudden you lose a coral here, you lose a coral there, and you can't figure out what it is. You could scrape it off. You can find there's a bacteria. Well, where did it come from? You haven't done anything in the tank in a long time.
It came from the Pentair UV sterilizer, which leaked antimony.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. There's a lot of bad equipment out there that literally leaches stuff in bad plastics too.
I will agree wholeheartedly. There's
UV
always
sterilizers and all sorts of shit.
Magnets, power heads,
All that.
heaters that crack and release tungsten and other things.
All that.
Yeah. I mean, but those are all the factors. I mean, I wrote an article probably 5 years ago that corals don't die without a reason.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we have to be detectives to try to figure out what the hell the reason is. Because 9 times out of 10, we can never find it because it's such a fine, minuscule thing. Like I had a friend who had a shop that had a gorgeous reef tank. All of a sudden, he started losing things slowly. He found out that someone had thrown in a handful of hearing aid batteries. Now, what are the chances of you finding hearing aid batteries in a tank? It's just, and who does that? I mean,
Michael, that never happens in fresh water.
No, yeah,
They don't
right,
corrode.
exactly.
They don't corrode. You can treat the tank. It's just that you want to know why people are buying $80 to $100 Plecos instead of $500 fish and a couple $1,000 coral. That's the answer.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
No, Mike, I agree with what you're saying in terms of bombing a tank with antibiotics, just to try to cure something that you're not exactly sure what is causing the issue. I think a lot of reef keepers out there have thought that's the end all be all, and that's going to solve all their problems. I think it's the same thing with using chemicals like ChemiClean or what have you to take care of cyano or other things to take care of like a bryopsis problem. Everything has everything you do to the tank is going to affect something else.
I would personally dilute it. I would just do water changes a series of them, and add back phosphate nitrate into the water change, and you dilute whatever you have, the issue. But of course, the issue might pop itself up in a month again if it's not taken care of.
It's like a domino effect, I mean, whatever you hit the tank with something else is probably going to get impacted. I mean, I've tried to treat bryopsis. What's the medication again with the fluconazole, and I've gotten diatoms and cyano as a result of that.
And you bring your phosphates and nitrates down and you get dinos, and people have more issues with dinos now than they did 30 years ago, probably by a factor of 10.
Not in fresh water.
No.
So I guess
Andrew apparently is cornering the market on freshwater. He bought Seacrest freshwater farms.
It's 10 times the views, 10 times as easy. My wife wants to know why I don't have a Discus Amazon tank here, and for an investment, it's way better than a koi.
That's Andrew. You saw the tank behind me. I love this tank. This is the first tank people see when they come in the house, and first thing they say is that salt water, which makes me laugh. Right. But everybody likes it because it's green, and humans like green color. Right. And there's big orange and black angelfish in there, and it's simple. I mean, I don't have any CO2. I have to take out these stem plants once a month because they grow so fast. Right. I do 2 water changes into the sink and then RODI back in. It takes literally an hour a month to run this tank.
You know what? You know why we don't do it? Because the challenge is not there for us.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
we're not normal people.
No.
But
So-
just kind of circling back to what you know, the point I was making before and what Mike was talking about, I think it is very important, especially for people that are just kind of getting into the hobby, to avoid the easy fix and to try to really dig down deep, roll up the sleeves, and figure out what is the root cause of a problem.
It's not going to happen. Who has the skills?
No, and who can get the information?
Well, we got to educate people.
You can, but you can go online and put in a question, and you'll get 15 different answers to it.
Yeah, it's a bad magnet. It's a bad heater. Check this, check that. You know, you can pull them all out and do a water change and then see what the ICP says after some carbon and GFO and you know, you could do that. But then you got to start introducing this stuff again, and you know, you're going to get all new equipment, or what are you going to do?
I mean, it's not easy to expect somebody who does not have the technical skills and the science
Correct.
knowledge and background to all of a sudden become an expert in diagnosing a reef tank and what's going wrong with it.
Yeah.
Especially
I don't
contaminant.
feel comfortable even knowing, you know, anything about my reef tank at a lot of different levels. The deeper I go into it, the less I know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. No,
Yeah.
but
That's
Like-
the problem. I mean, I've got 30 years into it, but I still don't know anything about the bacteria in my tank, right? And even if I don't have the training to even know what it is.
Yep.
well,
right?
and
I
you
sit
said
there and try to learn, but it'll be
But
all speculation on my part.
I also think patience is a big part of it too.
You know,
Yeah.
I think people
No,
just really
patience,
want
yes. You know,
people want
that's
quick
what I said.
fixes.
My approach was, this is my tank, this is the way it's operating. If the coral is happy, it'll survive. If it doesn't, then move on from that coral. You know,
Natural
I'm
selection.
not selecting for what
I really believe a large portion of the ugly stage dinos and diatoms can be avoided if we put in significant amounts mixed with the dry rock, if you want, of good quality live rock.
yeah.
And you could dose it with a diatom phyto, and you could put a UV on there, and voila, all that shit's gone.
And put in a ton of amphipods and copepods.
Yeah,
and other
and a ton of pods, and a ton of pods.
Yeah. And the other thing I would suggest is adding some sponges to the tank, some rocks with sponges. Because whenever I was running dead dry rock, I couldn't get corals to grow until I added a ton of sponges, and the
Right.
sponges took off.
Well,
That's just
the,
my
the,
that's
the
my
live
experience.
rock has the sponges.
Yeah, the live rock has the sponges. This was dead rock, but I added live rock with
Right.
sponges, and that's when it finally turned over.
I mean, I can't tell you how many
all
times.
the people. We
I
scared
can't-
all the people who were using live rock.
Yeah,
And
because
all
of
the
pests,
newbies.
because of
Yeah,
pests,
oh, they
right?
come with pests. They come with pests. They do this.
Yeah, that's
You know,
Gotta
use
get
that
'em
rock.
anyway.
It's all clean. You know, now
you gotta
got-
get them anyway, right?
Yep.
You got to get them anyway.
Yeah,
They find a way.
yeah.
They find a way. Speaking of pests, Andrew, you're probably a good one to answer this question. What any new pests out there we should be worried about?
Yes, beware of the new Ghani, the Ghani nudie that disguises itself as a Ghani. You can't even
What?
tell.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
cannot
What does it
tell.
look like?
It looks just like a hairy Ghani. It's scary. When I saw it, I'm like, this hobby's fucked. That was my first.
It's a pest that looks like a coral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's like an Aptasia.
I mean, all those nudibranchs. I mean, they are so good at
they
this.
disguise themselves. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You can set up a tank and your tank eats itself within a month.
Speaking of pests,
That
I know
doesn't happen in freshwater, by the way, guys.
No.
Andrew,
So the future of
Next
what's-
time we have Andrew back on, that big tank behind him is be full with
full of fresh water.
discus this big. Plants growing to the surface. He's going to have a slot above it, so it's acting like South America.
Hey,
manatees in there.
my stereo equipment just has regular depreciation. I don't get this shit.
What about acro-eating flatworms? Wouldn't our future just be awesome if we found a solution to getting rid of the acro-eating flatworms?
We've been using Chris's version of food with fenben in it in low doses. I've used it, and I've given it to 3 people here that have used it, and they do not have flatworms that they used to have.
All right, so here's what it comes down to. Do you believe it's the fenbendazole concentration in the water, or does it have to go through the fish's digestive system and the poop and the polyps need to take it out?
I'm thinking it's going
when
through.
When we did the former experiment, we couldn't find it.
The former experiment, the fish poop, or in the
Or
regular
in the
fenben?
water column, yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Someone needs to do that experiment.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We're going to do it. It's on our agenda.
No, I suggested that to you. That was an interesting
absolutely.
one to do, because the flatworms are in so many tanks. If you find out that it does work with basically just adding it or doing a fish and adding it and see if that makes the difference. I mean, it's a simple experiment because it takes about a month, 6 weeks, and then they're gone.
Well, what do you think our fish are doing to it?
A pinch.
Fenbendazole.
A pinch. First of all, you don't know the fenbendazole concentration in the flake.
Right.
And then you don't know what a pinch is per 17,000 gallons.
Yeah, well, in your case, it's a handful, big handful. But in most people's tanks.
And the fish are getting dewormed at the same time. I don't know if it's the fenbendazole in the water column or it's going through the fish and the fish are pooping and somehow the polyps are now getting that fish poop. And how do you know when you overdose it? How do you know which corals are going to take it?
Having been someone that used fenbendazole to kill off blue clove polyps, when it was in the water column, I could not put any snails in the tank for 6 months. That's how I knew the fenben was too strong.
Right.
But if you're thinking about it going through the fish poop, then it may be bacterially consumed, and then the corals consume bacteria. So maybe the whole process rather than just dumping it in the tank. That's one hypothesis. It could be a zillion different things. But from my point of view, having seen it 3 times,
but you can't even start the experiment if you don't know what the initial concentration is.
You
exactly.
No, what are you doing? Exactly. I mean, it's just like witchcraft. It's witchcraft.
A pinch in a couple of 100 gallons.
Yeah, what is the concentration in there?
Well, Ray's tanks that he was doing this on were about 120 gallons. So he's doing a pinch per 120
How much
gallons.
is in that pinch? How much fenbendazole is in there?
I have no idea.
What I'd like to know is
the guy who was making that food is no longer making it.
What I would like to know is what's the collateral damage to other animals in that tank? You know,
clams and softies. Yes,
I've got a ton of tube worms in my tank. You know, and you know, I've got the vermitid snails. I was thinking about hitting them, you know, with that flake food or whatnot. But I'm worried because if it takes out my whole population of tube worms and filter feeders and you know what have you, then what's the collateral damage?
It will take out everything. It will take out every soft coral, every vermitid snail, anything that's soft and mushy will be gone.
Have you noticed anything that you know, some consequences?
What about clams? What about clams?
I don't keep clams because I only rent clams. I never own clams.
I gave you that.
Yeah, I guess my question is, have you noticed anything long term with you know, any corals or what have you?
No, after 6 months of running carbon, poly filters, GFO, you know, everything else, finally it was taken out, but it did take 6 months before I could even put a snail in the tank. So, I mean, that was my criteria because, I mean, the next day there were dead snails in so many places that I didn't know I had. The vermitid snails were all gone.
That's just from feeding the fenbendazole flake?
No. This is when I did a pure fenbendazole treatment to kill blue clove polyps.
Yeah. You put it in the water column. Yeah.
I put it in the water column because it was just, it was killing everything. I mean,
that works for the blue clove polyps, right?
Oh, yeah. It works phenomenally well.
Right.
Because, I mean, I had taken out the rock, cleaned it, dried the rock, hit it with peroxide, put it back in, and they still would pop up. I mean, that was the hardest pathogen or coral I've ever had to try to get rid of. The worst thing I ever had to try to get rid of was dinos. And what's interesting is I thought, okay, dinos are really prevalent. If you go on Facebook, there's literally a group to treat dinos.
Mac.
It has 20,000 members. It's one of the, so that's how prevalent they are.
Yeah. But that's the problem with this hobby. There shouldn't be 20,000 fucking members.
No.
They should all be in freshwater.
Yeah. With big discus.
Monster fish. You see those guys on the monster fish?
Yeah, I see the monster fish guys.
You know how many views they get?
We're going to get you an arapima and a red catfish, and you're set.
I know. And then shovel-nosed catfish. Yeah, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys have identified, whether we said it or not, we've identified the brook problem, the quarantine problem, uranema problems, quarantining fish, and now coral pests. And if you were a hobbyist, you're like, why do I want to get into this? I'm gonna what? And then $1,000 lamps, ICP tests is the only way to detect a problem, or aquabiomics ahead of the time. It becomes you're playing the game Clue, and you think that the candlestick did it, but it wasn't. You know?
Yeah. No, as Sanjay and I have joked about forever, it's always something. There is always something. Andrew, you and Sanjay are old enough. You other guys probably aren't. But when I was a kid, they used to have the variety shows. And one of the things they always had was a guy balancing plates on a stick. Right. That's basically what we're doing in this hobby a lot of the times, is we're balancing plates on a stick. And if you don't keep them all going, once one falls and you get behind, they all fall. And that's typically what happens.
I got to tell you a story. I think the story is worth 1,000 words, but I'm going to keep it short. We had a theory that ESV Bionic 1 was causing too much selenium, even though he doesn't add it. The seleniums were building. Not too bad, up to 1 ppm. A lot of fish farms won't do anything until 3. But, you know, Christoph and Oshimo, like 0.5 is the number. So what we did was we cut Bionic 1 in half with liquid carbonate only, with no trace elements. Okay? Mm-hmm. To see if the selenium would drop. And we added no additional trace elements. So we used reef moonshining methods, but they were old because they were based on ESV calculations. And now we're diluting ESV, okay? Within 1 week, I had RTN on about 5 corals. And I believe that's just trace elements coming down.
Yep.
That, to me, was proof enough that any change, albeit even in the safe zone, can cause white/RTN. The minute I put back the Bionic, gone. The RTN stopped.
Bob's magic.
No.
It's Bob.
It's just... Now, had I perfectly took one down as I increased the each individual element perfectly, that probably would have been fine. But we can't do that. The test will come back within 4, 5, 6 days.
You need to buy your own machine, and every hobby should.
He has a machine. He has a machine.
I
In his garage.
fucking paperweight.
In the aquabiomics.
Garage. You have to train him, and he has to be.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting to know that as the trace elements came down, coral started to bleach out.
Yeah. I mean, I've joked with Andre that his moonshiner stuff is like crack. If the corals go without it, they start withering and dying, because I've seen the same kind of thing a couple times.
Right.
When, it's weird ones. It's cobalt, it's boron. It's things you don't think of. You let them go down. All of a sudden, you're going and you send an ICP test, and you see they're below when they were normal, and that's the only thing you can attribute it to.
Yeah, and we were working on the selenium being high, so we just took everything down, and it turns out the selenium wasn't the problem; it was everything coming down.
Like we said, it's always something. It can always be something that, like you said, the corals don't die without a reason. You found the reason, but how many people are going to find a reason like that?
I don't know. And before the actual test results came back, I put back B ionic 1, and the minute we put it back B ionic 1, I haven't seen another bleach.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I stopped doing water changes for a month. I started seeing some STN occurring. I went back to doing water changes. It stopped. Yeah, and we're still using Instant Ocean. It's not like we're using some crazy mixture that has a ton of stuff in it, but they're used to it.
Yep.
They're used to once a week water change. As long as I do a once a week water change, I have no issues. I miss it for 3 weeks, I start to get STN.
Right. You don't know if it's the fluoride. You don't know which element it is, or it's whatever. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
There you go. You're a slave to your tank now.
Yeah. I've been a slave to my tank for 40 years.
Your water tank. There goes your 2-week vacation to Italy. You can't because
no, I only do 10 days on vacation. If I leave more than 10 days, I get my anxiety level goes up to here. So,
well, let's end the show on a one final question, and I guess the question that I would have for everybody, here is, what kind of advice can you give to somebody that is new to the hobby, just coming into the hobby, what have you? This is going to be the future of our hobby, right? The people that we bring in to to hopefully get really jazzed up about keeping reef tanks and corals and fish and all that stuff. But what would be your advice to somebody that is kind of entering the hobby and hopefully is going to have a long reef keeping career?
I would say, 1, have something you probably don't have when you get in, which is patience. 2, keep things as simple as you can. And 3, find a mentor. Find one person that's doing things right.
How about a space for a quarantine tank, by the way?
Yeah. I would let you do that, or don't get in the hobby, get a freshwater tank. But I was going to leave it. But I would find a mentor who's doing the tank right. Follow what they're doing. Don't do like I do, where I find something and I go off on a tangent on it. But instead, find someone who you trust. That look at their tank. If their tank is what you want to achieve, follow what they're doing. Don't listen to anyone else's advice. Don't read anything else. Just follow what your mentor tells you what to do.
Hopefully you have a good mentor.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point.
Sanjay, any thoughts?
I think you have to be passionate about it.
Passion.
If you don't have the passion for it,
Perfectionist personality you need, right?
you're not going to be successful then.
Right.
Yeah.
You really do need a perfectionist personality.
You need to
and you also need to be OCD too.
Same thing.
Be able to move on from things that happen, right?
Yeah.
And you can only do that if you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
The first hurdle, you don't give up the race.
Never give up.
Yeah.
Never give up.
So that's what I say. If you don't have the passion, you'll give it up.
Yeah.
Right? It's not easy to be in this hobby for 30 years like I have been, or Mike has been, or Andrew has been.
Yeah.
Right?
This isn't a television
set else that drives it, right? And it's the passion that drives it.
Yeah, I think that's very true, because I don't believe that many people can, like you, to stay in a hobby after this kind of fiasco happened. So I think passion is really important, especially for this hobby. Yeah, seriously, when there's no passion, we'll just do freshwater fish.
There's passion there too. There's passion
not
there
koi.
Too, okay?
And right, Andrew, don't get into koi.
Don't get into koi. Sanjay,
fish.
I tell you, the prime ages to get into this is like your late 30s, early 40s. Once you start getting to our age, I'm going to group you and I together. We start thinking about like homes and vacationing and
An exit strategy? Is that what you're talking about?
Grandchildren and dying in a low tax state.
Right.
Right? like the prior, like you don't have the when you're doing this in your 40s and early 50s, you're not thinking about that shit.
No.
No.
I mean, you know,
Once you get into the 60s, you that's what you're thinking about.
I mean,
Time with my wife. How am I gonna create time? And can I get away for a month at a time? And do I want to die in this high tax state? And how do I move down to Florida and be a healthy life and live 7 months down there and not 6 months? And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, exactly. This is very honestly true, because I'm not that young anymore, right? And you look at it and I go, how many more years do I have in this hobby? Right. And what's my exit strategy?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being stupid. I already have an exit strategy. I'm not using it.
It slapped you right in the face.
It slapped me in the face.
It's in your will, right? It's in your will.
Yeah.
Here's your chance. Do it. No, but that's important too. There comes a point in time. When I was cleaning out the tank and all the mess, I go, would I leave my wife to deal with this if something happens to me?
So, Sanjay, I didn't want to tell you this, but in my will, and I go, Rosanna's first call is to you to take care of all this.
I have to outlive you.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
we need an animal care person for the wife. We do. And no bullshit.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to come in and sell my person Honest Angels for $3.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, it's
well, you shouldn't have told your wife you only paid $3 for it, Andrew. That's the first.
Yeah, that's your fault.
Doesn't matter what I told her. They get the proceeds, right? But they got to know which is which.
Yep.
Well, listen, guys, I gotta thank you so much for being on tonight's panel. It was really very educational, entertaining, and I'm sure all the viewers out there agree. So, on behalf of Dong, thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you. We always enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
We're glad you're back.
See, you can have all these nice conversations if you come to the Reef Retreat.
I'm gonna be there.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
That's a Memorial Day weekend, right?
No.
Oh, I have guests at the lake house. That's one of those lake house weekends.
That's
And
2
the
weeks
best
after
part of
Memorial Day, Andrew.
The best part of it is we're celebrating my birthday there.
Nice.
Guys, I wish I was there. I told Richard I would be there, and I feel terrible.
Yeah. Next year, we'll do it again.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Also want to thank the sponsors one more time. Polo Reef, Andrew. Make sure to check out Polo Reef's new YouTube video. A reefer's worst nightmare is a flood. And when the Polo team discovered a leaking pipe or a power outage on the 17,000-gallon reef, what they thought would be a quick fix turned into an unexpected flooding nightmare. Make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel at Polo Reef for video drop notifications. Flow is very important for keeping corals happy in a reef. Growing corals can block flow from wave makers and create dead spots. That's about to change. The ocean sea wave will oscillate any wave maker or power head in your aquarium from 0 to 180 degrees at an adjustable speed. This creates natural dynamic flow patterns, reduces dead spots, and kicks up detritus. The ocean sea wave is available exclusively through Champion Lighting and Supply. Visit championlighting.com for more info. ReefnBid. ReefnBid is the first of its kind in the reefing hobby, an online auction marketplace built by reefers for reefers to alleviate traditional auction pain points with features like autopay. ReefnBid currently hosts over 40 sellers, ranging from established vendors such as Aqua SD and Pieces of the Ocean to private hobbyists. It's like going to a virtual frag show and getting great deals in an auction format. Check them out at reefnbid.com. Also want to big shout out to Paul, who is the moderator as well as the president of the Boston Reefer Society. Today's his birthday. Happy birthday there, Paul. Please join and support your local reefing clubs. They are so important to this hobby. Also want to let you know that all episodes of Rappin' With ReefBum are available as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon. The next Rappin with ReefBum live stream will be next month on Tuesday, June 17th. Our guests will be Ali Adapor, Chris Kapp, and Kenny Wayne. We will be discussing the role of the local fish store in today's reef keeping ecosystem. Until next time, be safe and be well. Later.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith.
All right.